Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. Our title sponsor for the podcast is Go High Level, also known as GHL. GHL is the first ever all-in-one platform to give you the tools, support, and resources you need to succeed and crush your marketing goals. Personally, I've used this software since 2020. It's been a game changer for my business and our clients. If you're looking to level up your CRM and marketing game, then this is the platform to use. You can find a link for a free 30-day trial with tons of Builders of Authority bonuses in the show notes. So take advantage of this opportunity to adopt the amazing software and grow your business. It's been a minute since we had an in-person episode, but today's episode has a pretty interesting backstory on how this guest is here, but I'm really excited to dive into it. I was sitting on New Year's Eve scrolling social media, saw this individual posting about his daily life in college. I like following trends and seeing what works and what doesn't. And it was clear that he was onto something. And then I looked and he had 25,000 give or take followers on Instagram. Then I realized he was a student at WashU here in St. Louis. So I reached out to him, letting him know that I was enjoying the content. I would love to interview him on the Builders of Authority podcast. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I honestly expected crickets or a massively delayed response to someone that is a college student, right? I remember what I was doing my senior year of college, and it's definitely not what this individual is doing. The next morning, he reached out to me while traveling as well and said he would love to. A few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to sit down and have coffee, meet up and chat further, and now we're here for today's episode. So my guest today is Anthony Gross. Anthony, welcome to the show, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Adam. I'm super hyped to come on here. I've never done an in-person podcast before, and I'm like trying to figure this stuff out. Like, what does the studio look like? The mics, everything right here. So this is very cool. I'm very excited.
Dude, it's awesome, man. So tell the audience a little bit about kind of how you got started creating content. Like, when did this happen? I know we met up a couple weeks ago. I asked some questions just to kind of like brief myself a little bit, but I'm excited to dive in because I didn't want to like know all the answers. I want to have it be a conversation.
Yeah. Well, this goes into a couple parts. The first inclination of ever making content, it's all the way back, and it was senior year at high school. I vividly remember this day. I think I just finished like a baseball practice. I was in my room, and I was like, I'm a big day in the life type of guy. Like, I love watching those videos, especially ones at the time that were day in the life of a student entrepreneur or student athlete. And so I was watching this one guy. His name is Richard Yu. He went to UCLA. He's just an absolute stud, like very hard worker. And I remember finishing that video and saying, okay, next year I'm going to WashU. It's a good school. It'll get eyeballs. I'm going to play college baseball, student athlete. That'll get eyeballs. I'm like, I got to do this. Like, I feel some sort of calling to making these videos. But in that moment, just paralysis came over and so much fear. I'm like, there's no shot I could ever put something out there. Like, what was this person going to say? What are my parents going to say? My girlfriend at the time. I'm going to get so much crap all the time. I don't think I can ever do this. And so I kept it in the back of my mind. I get to WashU my freshman year. I blew it off. I'm like, there's no way I can do this, especially as a freshman, because you get there and you're like, I'm kind of freaking out right now. Everything's going on. And then it was finals week. It was the first day of finals week. And I'm just like, I need to do something. Like, I've been pushing this off too much. I'm going to do it today. And I filmed my first ever day in the life. If you go on my YouTube, it's still there. It's I have such a Midwestern accent, like very shy and scared with all this stuff. But that was my first ever video I put online. And then I did that. And then I made one more, and then I just stopped. I said, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. I'm getting too much crap. I'm too worried right now. Take it 3 years down the road. Maybe it's 2 years. It was October 2023. I was spending so much time in the gym. I had a very good physique, and I learned so much through this process. And it got to the point where it felt like I just needed to do something more. Like, you can only get so much fulfillment from eating clean and working out every day. And then at some point, it's like, well, what else am I doing? And so I'm like, I need to start a TikTok and start posting videos on how to get a good physique. But I didn't want to do it by myself for the same reason. I'm like, well, fear of judgment, whatever. So I asked two of my close friends, like, get in on this with me. One of them said no. The other one said yes. A week later, that one drops out. Now it's just me. But at that time, I'm saying to myself, if I don't stick through with this, I will be a quitter for the rest of my life. Because I came in, I quit the YouTube, I quit a drop shipping business, I stopped a marketing agency that I started, and this was the first. If I don't do this, I will be a quitter for the rest of my life. And because of that, I just kind of stuck through it. And obviously, you pivot a lot of times. Like I started with fitness. I do a little bit of fitness now, but not as much. And then I went abroad and did one thing, and then internship hit, and that's where I got the light at the end of the tunnel and kind of momentum. So that's been the story of the content.
So you've been posting consistently now for what it would be about 18 months. I'm not great at math. You're probably better than I am. So 18 months. So when did things start to like really take off? Because obviously I found you in December. Like what was kind of the like I guess the rocket ship moment?
Yeah. I love this question. And I always, when I have guests on my podcast, I ask them, like, especially content creators, what was your light at the end of the tunnel moment? Mine came studying abroad. So I did the fitness, I went abroad, and I got pretty lazy with it. I'm like, I don't want to film myself. So I did a challenge where I just take a selfie and say how my physique changes abroad. And every day I just post this little selfie, and it was like low effort. Then I got to the point where I'm like, okay, like I need to do something serious. And I was in Morocco with two of my friends. And we were sitting in a hotel room, and one of my friends goes, dude, you should start doing lifestyle content. Check out this video. Look how cool this is. And I just watched some person in the Swiss Alps skiing and this. I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I started filming lifestyle, nothing. And then it was April 16th. I woke up, hit a morning lift, came out of the gym, checked TikTok, and I see this little red button that says 99 plus. I'm like, what the heck just happened? Well, the day before, I filmed a Saturday afternoon studying abroad. First ever lifestyle video, got 10,000, or it got like 12,000 views. And at that moment, I was like, maybe people actually want to see this stuff. Like, there's a shot. And so I really just put my head down, put a ton of effort in. And then the internship came, and that's where I started seeing some consistent, really good growth back to back to back. So that was my light.
What was the internship?
I worked with Abbott Nutrition. And so I was in Cincinnati. I was doing sales work.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun, but I think a lot of the stuff that content-wise, there were two big reasons my content hit over the summer. Number one, I would do everything I'd eat in a day.
Yeah.
And at that time, I ate the same foods for every single meal, like there was no variety. I ate ground beef, avocado, I drink a ton of coffee, and people would just be like, this guy's a psycho. Like, what is he doing? So that got a lot of traction. And then the other one was, I was living alone. I was in Cincinnati. I didn't know anybody. So I'd make a video. It's like my Friday night in a city where I didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
And I put like sad music on.
Yeah.
And I'd go back and I watch these videos now. I'm like, man, I looked miserable. Like, no wonder these things did so good, because people just thought I was like just so down bad.
Yeah.
But that was kind of it.
So like kind of taking that angle, right, where it's like, okay, hey, like, people probably obviously now, like when you create content versus when you get started, like when you first get started, there's the backlash or the fear of like, what are my family and friends and all that stuff going to think? Now there's the internet trolls that you're probably dealing with from time to time, I can only imagine. So talk to us about what that evolution is like from being like, okay, I'm worried about what the people around me think. Now I'm worried about, like, maybe you're not worried about it, but like now I have to deal with the craziness that is social media.
It's such a good question, but I think the best part about content or just business, and I'm sure you experience this too, it's like you get to a certain point in your life where you're like, I'm taking myself seriously now.
Yeah.
Like, this is a non-negotiable. This is going to happen. And with that, you have to have tough conversations with friends and family and specifically tell them. And you're going to get a lot of pushback. Like, you get pushback from family, you get pushback from friends, but then you also get that circle that's really there to support you, which is the best thing ever. And it's a scary thing for a lot of people, because I think a lot of fear of judgment comes from, oh, my friends are going to make fun of me. They're not going to want to hang out with me. Good. That's a good thing. It's a weed out process. I made a video about this the other day. It's like orgo. Like, what does organic chemistry do? It weeds out chemistry students that aren't fully committed to it. I truly think, and it's not my favorite thing to say, but it's the same thing with content. You find out who's in your circle and who's not, and it's a good thing. It's sad, but it happens. But like the ROI on that long term is a good thing.
Yeah.
In regards for like hate and stuff, it's inevitable. TikTok's malicious. People will come at you no matter what. But I was talking to a creator yesterday. One of my favorite creators, over almost at 500,000 followers across platforms. And he's just like, yeah, I mean, some of the times like that stuff just motivates me. Like a lot of those comments, people clowning you, it fires you up. Other times it's like, you kind of feel like there's nothing I can do to win here.
Oh,
And I'm
yeah.
not going to go back at someone because it's
Yeah.
just silly.
That's a
But
lose-lose
yeah,
situation. And how old are you?
I'm 21.
21.
Yeah.
So, like, I look at this, right? And this is kind of where my next question goes. So, like, I look at where you're at 21 versus where probably the typical 21-year-old is at. You're talking and learning a lot of things and living a lot of things that I learned at 28. Some of the stuff that like you're talking about where it's like finding your circle and having tough conversations with friends and family. I've had that at like 33. So I'm interested to know, how did you get to this spot at 21?
I read a lot of books, and it sounds so stupid. Like, oh, you try to get this and that from a book. I've learned I am the man I am today from the books I've read and really taking that stuff seriously. So books have helped a lot. I also watch a lot of content from other people. One of the biggest guys I watch content from is Patrick Bet-David.
Mm,
Like you think of an ideal leader,
mm,
PBD is an ideal leader. And so I know I don't have a personal relationship with him,
mm.
and I know he's not mentoring me, but I try to take his knowledge that he puts into content at some sort of mentorship.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing all these things he's talking about, like people in your circle, this and that, what other people say who have been in the spots that I'm in right now and have succeeded. And I just try to take their advice from it. But also, like, I've been very fortunate with a fantastic group of friends that
Mm,
are around me, like killers and studs. And we're kind of on the same wavelength. And like loyalty is something, it's one of the most important values for me.
yeah.
And I think when you have people like that, they build you up so much. And so I'm learning from them every single day too. And so I'd
Yeah,
say that's probably
that's
why.
awesome, man. So how do you balance, college, right, with create creator mode? Like, how do you
Yeah.
balance all? And then obviously, like your fitness, I see you work out. Like, how do you do it?
I It's well, some of it is like I am in senior year, so my course load's a little bit lighter.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie, I'm
yeah.
not someone that's in there that's fully paying attention every second
Uh,
or, taking a million different notes.
yeah.
Like my day's probably 90% content creation
Okay.
and then fitness and then a little bit of school. That's kind of how I balance it. But I get this question a lot with just like interviews. Like you're going for a job. Okay, tell me about a time where you had good time management. And what I always say is list your priorities. Like you have to rank your priorities. Okay, boom, 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 boom. These are the most important. Okay, what does that mean? Social life may have to fall out.
Mm,
Maybe sleep falls out a little bit. And that's something that I just do a lot with time management
hmm.
and also like planning out a to-do list for the day.
Yeah.
It just takes all this anxiety off and honestly it allows you to run on autopilot.
Hmm.
So you can just write this out. Okay, this is what I have to do. This is where the gaps in my day are and this is how I'm just going to get stuff done. I'd say those are the biggest things that have helped me out.
Yeah. So I think like for me, right? Again, I found out a lot of those things at 28 when I went full time into entrepreneurship, where it was also in the middle of the pandemic, where it was like, hey, I can't go out and do all the stupid
Yeah.
stuff I used to do. I also have a business that I'm trying to build up and run. I don't have a paycheck that's guaranteed and coming in. I just bought a house. I just got married, all this stuff where it was like I almost created an environment to have my back against the wall. And that's when I really grew up, if you will, where you're doing it, quite younger than I was, so I'm envy of that because I think like the things you're learning right now are things that most people don't learn until they're in their 30s. Like very frequently do those things happen. So how is being in college when you mention like the social life stuff? Again, just me looking back at my senior year when I had like two classes the last semester, a lot different than what you're doing. How have you like what was it for you where you're just like, hey, I'm not gonna do the typical senior stuff, like with the social life and all that stuff. I'm gonna focus on building this.
I'm not gonna lie. Last semester, I mean, I was going out a bunch, and
Yeah.
my bio. If you look at my bio, it says work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
I worked hard, play hard last
Yeah.
last semester. Believe me, like I went
Yeah.
out a lot, and then I got to the point where I take my self analysis at the end of each year very seriously. Like I don't joke around with that stuff because if I don't know who I am and where my deficiencies are,
Mhm.
how could I ever be the best version to serve another person? You can't. You just cannot.
Yeah.
And so I took a look at what was going on during the last semester, and I asked myself, like, did I really have fun? Did this just 10x my anxiety every time you go out and you party and you do this? How many days? How many days have I wasted from doing these things? And the amount of days I wasted was sickening to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to have a tough conversation and say, well, Anthony, you have all these big goals and aspirations and you want to help people. This can never get done if you don't take yourself seriously, you don't waste days. It has to start now because it ain't going to start in June when you're done graduating college. It's definitely not going to start in September when you have a full-time job.
Yeah.
It needs to start today. And then I really understood where like my fun came from. And it doesn't come from going out and partying and talking to girls at a bar or doing this and that. Like right now I get my fun from just like working towards a purpose. And so honestly, that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you, man, for figuring that out. Took
Appreciate
me a while to figure that out.
So with you said it was kind of like force.
Mm-hmm.
What was like the breaking point for you to figure that out?
Well, so I was like right out of college, I fumbled around for like the first year. So I was still living in Columbia, Missouri a little bit. I came back to St. Louis. I was living in my mom's basement, but like I was still going out literally all the time.
Yeah.
I got lucky and found myself in medical device sales in 2016. And so I was there for basically 5 years up until I left. And so I was always working from home. Like as long as I was going and hitting my numbers and doing all my stuff, like I could still go out during the week. I was married in 2018, but like for a couple of those years I was traveling all over the country, just doing whatever I wanted. Right.
Yeah.
But for me, when I went full time, I left a $200,000 a year job with benefits and all that stuff. We had just bought our house a couple weeks prior, and it was the pandemic. So it wasn't like there was a whole lot to do, which was July of 2020.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, hey, you have this kind of decision moment. My first mentor is still a mentor to this day, said, Adam, like, if you want to be successful in digital marketing, you have to start creating content. So that was August of 2020. Because I left that job in July 2020 and thought I have a sales background. I'm really, really good at marketing. I know how to run a business. I went from side hustle to full-time in that first month. I sold $0.
Okay.
So in August, I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, what did I just do? Because I'm thinking entrepreneurship is just like I can sit in my pool and drink whenever I want to. I can take days. I'm thinking about all the perks that happen 5% of the time if you're lucky, not the 95% that happen. So I had that tough conversation myself. I was like, what do I want? And so I started posting, and then all of a sudden my friends are like, who does this guy think he is? Is he Tony Robbins? My family thinks my Facebook account is hacked. All of this stuff that happens, right? So for me, it was just like I have this moment. I'm 28 years old. At that point, it weeded out a lot of my circle of a friend circle. Now it's been the family stuff that's had to happen for a variety of different reasons. But that was the initial breaking point where it was like, if I want to be successful with this, I have to go a different path. And since then, right, I did have up until Murphy was born, we would still go out. And now it's like, if I go out, like, holy crap, I'm like worthless the next day, even if I have a couple of drinks.
Yeah.
But, I had that, right? I had that time in my life where it was just like, shit, it's like, okay, living for the weekend, right? I'm in medical device sales. I have money. I have whatever I want, and I'm okay. I can show up and look like shit and feel like shit because I'm working from home.
Yeah.
But that wasn't what was the best version of myself. It also, isn't sustainable. So there was multiple different aspects of that. But, for me, it was that initial moment back in 2020 when I was like, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And then I sold nothing. And so it's like, something's got to change.
So it's the humbling experience.
Very humbling.
That's very interesting. I'm all about, I saw this somewhere. It's like people want to get, this one person was talking, I can't remember who it was, but he's just saying like the humbling moments. A lot of people, it's embarrassing and it's tough to like get humbled in something like that.
Yeah.
But if you have that and I'm Catholic, you view it as a test from God. You're getting a little bit too arrogant.
Yep.
God needs to send you a message to get you right back in line.
100%.
That's kind of how I process moments like that. And I'm very grateful for it. And it sounds like you did the same thing. Which is,
absolutely. Yeah. Like it's, luckily I always tell people is like, luckily a lot of people start a business out of necessity, meaning like, I can't go get a job. I know plenty of people that have came out of jail and started businesses that are now some of my, you meet in entrepreneurship, you meet a lot of people from all different walks of life, right? So I've joined a lot of I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and masterminds and events and all these different things, right? And so a lot of these people are like, man, I got fired from every job I was at. I had to go start this business. For me, it was like, man, I had the rest of my life ahead of me with medical device sales. I would have been fine. And I wanted something different.
Right.
I wanted freedom. I wanted a lot of different things, right? So it was more so like I created this environment for me to be successful, but I did it and realized that I had to push myself to that next level of my comfort zone to truly go get on the other side. Because for me, it wasn't just like for a lot of people, like I know people right now that are starting business, they're like, man, my goal is just to take home $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, right? They might be fresh out of college. They might be, that's all they need right now. They're making 50 grand a year right now working for somebody else. For me, it was like, I need to make over $200,000 a year. I lost all my benefit, like all those different things. So like
Crazy.
the stakes were much higher for me.
Yeah.
And so I had to, again, not just like inch my way in. I had to go basically all in.
That's okay. So that's a super interesting point. My, for example, in my life and my family, some of the stuff my mom's like, it gets brought up like, don't post this stuff on content. Like employers are gonna see this. It's gonna affect you. This and that. And I'm like, Mom, if I don't do this today, how difficult is it gonna be when I'm 26, 27, 28? I have a wife, I have a kid, and I'm making 150, 200 grand at a job. How hard is it going to be today to start something than today? Like, this is the easy part right now, and so I can't push it off.
Yeah.
But for you to be in that situation and just do it and push yourself with all the stakes on the line, it's something very impressive.
I
have a lot of
appreciate
respect
that.
for.
I have a lot of respect for what you're doing, man. And so it's like one of those things where, like, growing up, right, it was always like for me, Catholic family as well. It's like go to college, get a job, 401k, benefits, all that stuff, right? And so you think like that's all that I knew,
Yeah.
right? And then I see an ad, I buy this course in 2018, I build hundreds and hundreds of websites, and then like the rest is history. But what I have found is that like following someone else's plan is usually never the result that most of us are looking for. Not to say you can't take advice from other people or if somebody's done what you're looking to do. Like for me right now, I'm hiring coaches and mentors and things like that, not because of what they've just done in business, but like what the whole scope of it looks like.
Yeah.
And if they haven't built a business that I would want to have, right? Or if they don't have the marriage or if they don't have the physical aspect, right? Like so often, I've taken so much advice and spent so much money with the wrong people because they said that they had done X, Y, and Z, but they really hadn't, right?
Mhm.
And so a big thing for me is not just surrounding yourself with the right people, but who are you taking advice from,
Great point.
right? Like if you wouldn't take their whole world, the good, the bad, the ugly, then like you shouldn't probably be following exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Maybe bits and pieces, but not like, oh, hey, I'm going to go take everything this person says and run with it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I've heard that a bunch too. I would say I guess I haven't thought about that a ton where I think I'm at that point, especially with the advice right now. Because I mean, honestly, a lot of the advice I get is probably just from my close friends, and we don't have any idea what we're like. You
Yeah.
never have any clue what you're
Well,
doing.
there's different stakes,
But,
right?
yeah.
Like there's different stakes in the moment. And a lot of times, like the thing is like you probably haven't failed a whole lot. Like I'm not saying you haven't failed with certain pieces of content, but like
Yeah.
for me, it was like the biggest failure I had was literally losing my entire business through a bad partnership deal this year. Like I had lost a ton. Like every day I lose and fail. But
Yeah.
like a big failure where I had to build another business back from zero and we built it to $1 million again already. Like that was the big moment for me where it was like, crap, I lost everything.
Yeah.
In the blink of an eye. So often, right? Like, but again, it was because I took a bunch of bad advice.
Right.
So often, right? You don't know what you don't have or haven't gone through until you go through it, right?
True,
So it's like
true.
sometimes like in the beginning, I was like, I'm going to read this book and listen to this podcast and I'll follow this influence, like all these different things because you don't know what you don't know. So you
Great
have to take advice from all these different places until you realize, okay, hey, I shouldn't have done that.
That's a great point, and it kind of relates to a little bit of like the internship
Mhm.
experience in college, because a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I want this dream job. I know I'm gonna love this." Okay, that's fine. I think the opposite is just as important, maybe
Oh,
not
yeah.
even more important, to
Yep.
do something that is such a bad experience and you know you don't like it, and then
Mhm.
you learn from that and you understand. And it kind of relates to a little bit of the seeking advice, but I'm also like, no matter what happens and what experience, there's always a purpose to it. It's never
Absolutely.
just meaningless. And so like having that optimism at all times, optimism's like one of the greatest superpowers ever. is a huge competitive advantage, I think, in the game of life.
It's a massive advantage, right? And so again, like everybody, like I did an internship at a minor league baseball team, and my major was sports management. And so I thought I'm gonna work for the Cardinals or the Blues, or at the time the Rams were even around here in
Yeah.
St. Louis. And then I did a summer out in O'Fallon. It was the River City Rascals at the time, and I'm like, man, I do not want to do this at all. But I was already halfway through college, right? And so it's like, oh, well, what if I didn't do that internship? Like
Yeah.
I thought that this was going to be the internship that unlocked
Exactly.
every single door, and it was going to absolutely love it. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go and do other stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so I did a couple other internships in digital marketing, and then just general business. And so it's like you don't know, like you can tell yourself you want to do one thing, but until you actually go and do it, you have no freaking idea.
You want to hear something interesting? So, I think this relates to the idea of like at some point you just have to trust yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
For example, I came into college arts and sciences. I'm studying economics. I found out I didn't like economics. Okay, but I couldn't switch to the business school because I didn't have the GPA to do it because I had a tough first semester academically. I worked very hard to get my GPA up, and then it comes to sophomore year, end of sophomore year, I'm able to switch in, and I have two options: marketing or finance. I love sales. I already had an internship in sales. I know I love it. I'm obsessed with human nature, persuasion, influence, getting to know people. That is all marketing sales. Finance, if you put me in Excel and you tell me to do something, I'm going to be god awful at it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be miserable doing it. But it doesn't matter because at my school, majority of kids, they go into finance, investment banking, or they're going to consulting. They're working for a BCG, a McKinsey, a Goldman Sachs, all these huge prestigious banks. It's a symbol of status. And so I'm sitting there saying, man, like, am I really going to do marketing? Like, nobody does this. I go to Wash U and I'm going to do marketing instead of trying to get six figures after college and work for the best company in the world. Should I really, really do this instead of finance? And I didn't trust myself, and I gave in to whatever the peer pressure is all around you. And I did finance, and I did it, and I did it for a semester, and it sucked. Like I did not enjoy it at all, and I was not good at it.
Mhm.
And then finally, I switched the major, did marketing. Marketing has helped so much with content. But then also this past summer, working at my internship, I love that company.
Mhm.
Fantastic company, fantastic culture. The work I was doing, it was sales, but I wasn't selling. I was sitting in Excel, analyzing numbers. And it just got to the point where you get so fed up with what you're doing and you say, I need to trust myself now. And it doesn't matter if it's not the path that everybody like the ROI in the future will be so much greater than just doing this one thing right here.
Mhm.
And so experiences are the best thing in the world. And you do have to trust yourself. And it's tough. But that's something that I'm starting to pick up a little bit more.
Yeah, no, you absolutely have to trust yourself. You have to go with your gut. Every time I look back at a massive decision, like even the small decisions, but like the massive stuff, and I've went in the other direction,
Yeah.
almost every single time it's been a mistake, or I've regretted it, or I felt guilty about it. So couldn't agree with you more. So what is your plan after college? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I am going into sales. I'm keeping this a little low key because I haven't really told anybody, but I'll be in a city doing sales work, and that's kind of what I've got right now. Super excited about it. Like I mentioned, I love sales.
Mm.
This is a cold call job to an extent. You're on the phone, you're trying to sell, you need to hit a quota. I think that's also why I love it so much.
Yeah,
Like being, and I know you're too, like a former athlete, college
Mm.
athlete, like
Mm.
being competitive
yeah, it's
and
huge.
giving you something to work towards. And that's maybe why I also don't like finance as much because
Yeah,
it's like you can't see results right away, which
Uh,
I enjoy doing. So
uh,
that's kind of what the plans are for.
that's
after
awesome.
college.
So what's the plan then? Like, kind of with the content, obviously. Like, I'm not gonna say like things are gonna change, but obviously, like going to work in a full time job, things do change.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm talking me and my friend last night. We went for a walk around campus and we're gonna live together in this new city because we're both working there. And he's like, hey, man, have you been thinking about it? I'm like, yeah, I think about it every single day.
Uh,
And he gets brought up. He's like, I know, like there's only so much time. And I'm like, I know there's only so much time. And I brought up the same thing with priorities. Like at some point, Sam, someone's gonna have to give.
mhm.
Whether it's your sleep, whether it's your fitness,
Yeah.
there's only so many hours in the day. And so that stuff's always constantly in the back of my head, but that's why it's so important right now to build up a foundation of
Mhm.
habits
Yeah.
and like get rid of all this wasted time and days. And honestly, just get as much traction and momentum right now and try to just try new things, experiment, see what hits, and kind of take it fully running in the fall when I start. So I don't know. I'm not trying to plan out too much. I'm very excited for it, but that's kind of how it's going to look.
Dude, I'm excited for you, man. I'm excited to see how this unfolds. Like I said, man, you're light years ahead of your age. You're light years ahead of most people. So kudos to you, man.
I appreciate it, Adam.
Yeah, man. Well, this was an awesome episode. I'm really glad we had the opportunity to do this. Where can people stay connected with you and follow the awesome content?
Yeah, absolutely. So on Instagram, my handle is Anthony Gross _. On TikTok, it's _Anthony Gross. And if you are to go to Spotify with my podcast, it's called Gross Potential. A lot of stuff we do there, I'm sure you could tell from this conversation. Like, I'm big into personal growth and stuff like that. No matter how corny some people may think it is, this is the stuff that fires me up. So Gross Potential on Spotify. Do solo episodes where we talk about personal growth, stuff that I struggle with, how I've overcome it. And then we've been having on some big guests, entrepreneurs. 6-7-figure entrepreneurs. We had a guy the other day that may sell his business for almost 50 million, like a big number. Had some pretty big content creators are. So that's where you can find us there. And then I'm on YouTube too. YouTube's a little bit slower, but it's Anthony-Gross.
Love it, man. We'll put that all in the show notes. Then I got to get on your podcast, man.
Oh, you'll be there. You'll be there. Don't worry.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for coming in today. And thank you to Go High Level, our amazing title sponsor. Without them, we aren't able to produce the quality of content or have amazing guests on like we did today. Check out a free and extended 30-day trial in the show notes. Make sure as well to leave us a 5-star review, making a big push for reviews this year, and it definitely helps move the needle. And remember, authority isn't built overnight. It's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.